Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Maxwell, representative of the People's Health Alliance in North America. Today, we are with Cayla Wright, a dear friend of mine, an occupational therapist. We are going to talk today for this interview series a little about her background, what led her to get into different realm of practicing and doing things, and that's what we're trying to highlight with this series. We're going to start with how you got even into the education of becoming an occupational therapist. And I'm assuming, I actually don't even know what the education includes, honestly. So I'm assuming, was that something you figure out in undergrad? Where does that story take you? And just how did you aim towards education to begin with?
Sure. Yeah. So really, first of all, happy to be here and share my story as to all the different things that I've gotten into. But with occupational therapy, so it is a master's degree. You can also get your doctorate. I chose the master's route. So after undergrad, 4 years of undergrad, it is 2 years for the master's degree. And I did decide this in undergrad. I actually started as a nursing major with goals to become a nurse practitioner. Soon after doing that and getting into clinicals and understanding what I would actually be doing for a majority of my career, I didn't enjoy it. I started to realize that there was no joy in it for me. The nurses I was around, it wasn't the kind of energy I wanted to have throughout my whole life. And I made kind of a difficult decision of, I was already almost done with the nursing school to switch, as, in my head as a person that's like, I have this plan, I'm finish this out. It was quite difficult to make that decision when all my other, friends and things were doing nursing as well. But I knew it was the right choice for me. And once I made that set decision, I was like, we're going to go forward with this. And at the same time, I was still doing some clinicals. I started to look in the realm of like, what are other people doing at the hospital when I was working there? Because I knew I still wanted to do something medical based. Didn't know exactly what that would be. But I ended up turning towards maybe physical therapy or occupational therapy. I did a lot of shadowing. And, around the same time of that decision, I just knew I wanted something more holistic, whatever that meant at that time period when I made that decision and not knowing what that even would mean for me. And being with the surroundings I had, the closest tie to that I saw was occupational therapy, as they do take a holistic approach to the body, even though it is more in the medical system as a whole. And so with that, I was like, let's do that. Let's become an occupational therapist. And that led me to really pursuing that and getting my master's.
I think that already brings up some questions. Again, we'll still do a little review, a little bit more past stuff. But I think I want to start with, this is so crazy to me. And I humbly say that I feel like I'm very well informed about most areas of medicine. Like that's like my nerd thing out. Like I'm constantly researching medicine, different avenues, et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing I'll be completely honest with, I have no effing idea what an occupational therapist does, which is crazy to say. Like I feel like I know so much about so many areas of medicine, but I have a guess. Like, I think that they do things, but I have no idea. So maybe if you could start there, just kind of say like what general areas they go into, what practice looks like, and things like that, just for occupational therapy as a whole.
Oh yeah, no, you are nobody knows what occupational therapists do, to be completely honest. Most people, sometimes they say that and they ask if I getting them jobs or like job hunting for them or something.
I get that because the word of it, fair.
Yeah, people just have no idea. But so occupational therapy, I like to say it's a close tie with like physical therapy in a sense of like the way the body works and like therapeutic action and recovering and rehabilitation. Like we do some sort of degree of that. But occupational therapists, I would say like take it a step further and also like fill the gap between like what's missing. Maybe with a speech therapist or physical therapist is on board, we can kind of do a lot of what both of them do. But if they're there, we can also step into some other realms related to that. So we really focus though, the reason like occupational is there is because you have a knee injury or like a arm injury, or, I mean, it could be anything, recovering from a stroke. Like we have a very heavy mindset around the neurological side of things too. And with that being said, our target or our goal is not just, heal that area or get it stronger or something. We have a deeper goal to that. So it's like, why are we getting this stronger? Because you can't get yourself dressed in the morning and do your daily occupations of getting dressed, brushing your teeth, or maybe it is like you like to go golfing and we want to get you back to that. So it's like, what are the things and what is the goal with that? in the adult population. In the kid population, their main occupation is play. And so if there is anything inhibiting them from that, then we're like, what are those milestones we need to meet in order for you to be doing your main occupations, which usually is play. I mean, there's other things related to that, and like walking and milestones are related to the motor skills of it. But it's so encompassing, it's so broad, and that's, I think, the beauty of it is that we can fit so many pieces of, a nursing home and getting them, to get back home, or in the hospital, quick recovery, kids in a school, maybe it's handwriting, to be honest, too. Like that's part of our realm as well. And so it's really so broad, but we're also encompassing the mind piece to it, which other therapists, I don't think like do so much, is like we have very heavy training in like the nervous system too.
Fair. No, and I think that actually makes sense. I think that was maybe a little bit of where my brain was going, but I think the word occupation was actually deterring me a little bit more so because I was thinking that it was simply a system meant to get someone to like go back to work. That's what, like
Yeah.
where mine was saying, where it sounds like we were saying it's more of like activities of daily living or your like markers and things you're trying to uphold there. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I also, based on the way you're saying that, then do some of the things include obviously there's an inclusion of like exercise, like something that PTs might, incorporate and things like that. You touch on the speech aspect of things. You touch more on like the mental, emotional side of stuff. Is there also in some areas of occupational therapy talk about diet or like things like that? Is that also a kind of a thing there?
Yeah, and I would say to a degree though as well, like it's not the depths of like the other training that I've done for myself that
Yeah.
like I know, where it's kind of still more like there still is that like medical system based part in it that still holistic. We want to look at that like foods and eating and ability to even eat. It's not as heavy as like what the actions of the foods are doing in the body though, and like how important that is too. Yes, it's a piece of it depending on the like practitioner themselves, I would say. But yeah, like overarching, yeah, I would say that's a piece of it.
It sounds like to me it obviously has to, and I'm not throwing shade at this lens, it's just the lens that's being utilized right now. It's obviously a very holistic system through the medical lens there, though, so it has many of those limitations. And it sounds like to me that this actually would be a beautiful, beautiful occupation, pun intended, if it was allowed to operate a little bit more truly holistically, if they were able to do a lot more true nutrition called like coaching and true exercise that are meaningful. Obviously, they're able to do some aspect of that, but I'm sure operating in the medical paradigm and system is bringing the limitation that we're all seeing where they just don't even have the ability to do that. Is that kind of what you see as far as practice actually goes?
100%. Yeah. And that's why it was so difficult for me being in like a nursing home, a hospital, even working with kids, because there is still a limit to that as like the direction that you're wanting to bring them. And it's still, push them for like medications and like that's what they're like medication management and things like that. And there was a cap there. I would say the caveat to that would be if you get lucky, where I did have a job where, it was more preventative, but it also was a like separate non-for-profit thing that was built from occupational therapists that had the lens of the holistic side that was deeper. And so that allowed me to educate and teach on more of that side of it and not be overcapped by like insurance and the medical system as a whole. So yeah.
No, and that's the unfortunate part too, is because like all of these occupations, did not get, I have to laugh every time because of all of these occupations, definitely have this feeling that in their purest form, obviously intent is amazing, and I think that if they were operating at their highest capacity, would be such a rich body of assistance to overall health. But I also see this limitation in something like dietitians or nutritionists who are working directly in medical systems. It seems like such a dumbed down, for lack of a better way of putting that, in such a limited scope of what nutrition and these things could be. And it's incredibly, incredibly unfortunate because then people try stuff from those providers in the medical discipline and paradigm and then think lifestyle changes can't actually change anything because they're trying lifestyle changes that are coming from a system that doesn't even actually have the bolstering and support to that, because even in the medical paradigm, our understanding of nutrition, lifestyle, and these adjacent things is incredibly, incredibly limited because we don't research them that much. And we aren't diving in from the other sides that more holistic systems are kind of doing. And so that's just my high horse going to get off that now. But it's really, really unfortunate there. And it sounds like once we get to this question, that might be some of the things that brought you into different scopes in different areas. Before we go there, what even brought you into the pursuit of nursing? What brought you into even health to begin with? Like, why was that even in your mind going into undergrad? I always like to start when someone's like, because I feel like I like to help people who are like 16, 17, 18, like the hardest years of our life. Like, and they're all thinking these questions. During that time, were you like, I want to be a nurse? Like, what? The why? The why?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I feel like I was pretty fortunate in high school to be, my perfectionist self at that point. Like I need to get good grades and I need to do all this and I need to have whatever. That was a different story at that point, but it did allow me to actually have an internship because of like how high I stood as like in my class that like others were not able to have. And with that, I knew in my head I was like I want to do something health related. I grew up as a dancer. I understand the body. Like I just always loved that piece of it. I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to be, but at that time, it's just if I could go back to like high school, I don't know what I would have done because
Yeah.
there's so much more open. And at that time in my head, it's like doctor, nurse,
Yeah.
like lawyer, like there's not a lot of different options I felt like that were kind of there. And I was like, okay, what do I actually want to do? I used to love like the idea of like working with kids at that point too. And so I had the opportunity to actually work with or have an internship with a pediatrician and a nurse practitioner in like a more family kind of oriented setting. And with doing that, I learned what I wanted, what I didn't want. And I think that ability to see that did guide me to deciding to go to nursing school because I thought I wanted to go be a doctor. I
Yeah.
am happy I didn't go to become a doctor personally.
Yeah.
But at that time, that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then, I saw the realms of it. I'm like, well, you know what? I can do the same things as a nurse practitioner. But in my head, at being a teenager myself, I'm like, I don't want to spend that many years in school. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know what that looked like. And so then that kind of changed my idea of what I wanted. And I understood that, at least if I go become a nurse practitioner over like a physician assistant, I have more like authority or like I can have my own space. And that was like my ideal, like, great, I can kind of take more action on what I want. And so with that, that's kind of what led me into nursing school itself at that time with the goal of being a nurse practitioner. I had no desire actually to be a nurse. I was like, I'm going to school and I'm going to get whatever I need to do as quick as I can. I want to go back to school to become a nurse practitioner. And with that, of course, once I got into like schooling, I was like, I did really well. Again, it was another place where I was like, I definitely was like, had the drive and I always thought grades were the most important thing. And like,
Yeah.
I did all the things and everyone's like, you're so crazy for changing your major. Like most people are failing out of this program or something. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I don't like it. So yeah. Does that answer kind of your
Yeah,
question?
no, because I definitely didn't line. It's so interesting because we've never had this conversation this directly about this. I feel like it must have been a like generational thing, and in that those are my exact struggles when I was trying to go into like what am I going to do with the rest of my life. I looked into NPA, I looked into PA, I looked into MD, I looked into DO, I looked into DC, I looked into ND, I looked into like all of these different realms, and they're all had so many limitations and reasons why I didn't want to take that step forward into them. And I knew what I wanted to do, far outreaching, like my overall concept and how I wanted to feel and like what I wanted to engage with and how I wanted to operate. But there was nothing at that time that actually lined up with that. So for me personally, I mean, I got a degree in chiropractic, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, nutrition, all of those things, because that was the only way that I could do all the things I wanted to do at one time in one place, because there wasn't something that allowed those doors to open, you know? And I think that another thing is, and it's funny how you say that you just realized you didn't want, now that you didn't want to be an MD. It seems like everyone thinks alternative practitioners, are on like an opposite polarity or against the medical field or anything along those lines. And it's for me personally, I actually have so much empathy and sadness, for lack of a better word, for MDs. The reason I don't want to be them is because I feel for how much their struggle is right now. And I don't want that struggle right now, which is unfortunate to say, and that's kind of just based off the system that we're both still trying to navigate and operate in. And my last question before we kind of go into where the occupation has taken you, most people who go into health adjacent fields have like a personal harrowing story of, I was hit by a car and this person helped me out, so therefore I wanted to do that. Did you have any, and you can share as little or as much as you like, did you have any like true health struggle or issue that you think guided you into wanting to do this? Or was that just something that might have been a parallel you related later on?
Yeah, so for you mean to, like, going into, like, nursing school and
To even like go into a health adjacent thing, do you think that like some of your own health, personal health stuff like brought you there?
I feel like at that time, to be honest, like, not necessarily, because I don't think I was aware enough as to that what I was struggling with that would have brought me to that direction. I think more so sided for me, like, I was always more science and math heavy and good at that, and I was like, "So I must go down the medical field, and that's where you make the most money," and then you learn that that's actually not even true, and it's just like
Yeah.
that, that was kinda where my mind was on that time. Honestly, there was no thought of, like, something that happened for me, 'cause you're right, there is a lot
Yeah.
even in the nursing program. I remember people would say, "My mom had this," or, like, "This happened," and, like, yeah, later on, there was stuff with family that really drove me to where I am now, but at that point, it was kinda just like, what am I gonna choose for the medical field?
No, I think that's awesome that you highlighted that too, because I feel like I have personal experience with that as well. That like I did well in math and science, go into medical, like that was just like what we were told at that time. I'm not mad at it now that I'm here, but it is kind of sad how like limited and like driven or like put into those boxes that we were. And I'm actually kind of happy that your story doesn't have the oh this happened to me and this led me here, because that I'm sure that you're not alone in that. And then you even with that not having that, you still landed in the right place, which is kind of cool in its own part, you know. And so with that being said, let's kind of get to post graduation of becoming an occupational therapist and where that left you feeling once you were actually like in it, I guess is the best way to phrase that.
Yeah, so there was something for me when I was even in OT school that and honestly, if you ask anybody that like is close to me has always known undergrad, even high school, undergrad, graduate, like I was always the person that, was yes, I'm 100% into everything that I do, but I'm also
Mhm.
doing a lot of different pieces of things and jobs and things I enjoy and like it was just always like that and when I grew up again like as a competitive dancer and it was like my schedule was just like get out of school and go to dance for like 4 or 5 hours every night, and then on the weekends I still like worked and it was just like I just had that different discipline that made me I think very like able to manage and want to do a lot of things and I get bored doing
Yeah.
one thing. So when I was in OT school, I knew that I didn't want a traditional setting. I just knew. I was like, if I have to for a little bit of time to get where I want to be, that is fine. But there was no way that I was going to be the set person to working a 9 to 5 job anywhere. Like, if anything, I'll work with 5 per diem jobs and do like
Yeah.
that's just how I've always been. And I did feel I got really fortunate in a sort of way with the OT job that I landed initially out of grad school, as it was quite flexible, but also was the preventative side that I wanted and was hoping to get eventually. And I happened to get it right off the bat. And it was like, you don't see this anywhere else, really. And,
Yeah.
leading into that, it led me into teaching like fall prevention programs to seniors. And it allowed the outlet of the creativity of me as a yoga instructor, too, to come up with different exercise and in movements and things that are going to help with balance. And I started just it correlated with so much of my life at that time. And even just like teaching more on nutrition because I did know so much. And so that was kind of the direction I ended up being in. And I did work some per diem jobs where I was in traditional settings, but every single time it reminded me, I was like, that is not what I meant or want to do because it's really just limits. Like it really caps, at least for me, like it's not fulfilling because I just see so much more potential in these people that is
Yeah.
not able to be met. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You answered the question. And I think the direction mostly with that question where I kind of intended on going with that is you got into a position in an area where you did start to feel fulfilled and this is what you wanted. How did then the shift in perception and change go to? Because you do something a lot different now in this very moment. Where did that shift start coming and what was your kind of why there?
Yeah, so I think this all cultivated over many years for me. As much as a detriment for a lot of people like COVID time was like and heavy, I feel like it was to my benefit in a way. That's again my personality instead of being like, "Oh great, I can relax, I can do less." I was actually like, "Great, we'll just not do as much." I started doing more because I was in undergrad at the time actually And I think I was a junior, I want to say. And yeah, so it's like things were getting shut down. I had to do a lot of my classes virtually. I couldn't really go and do the typical things I would do with like in college and events and all of this stuff. And so with that, there were a few things that happened. That summer, I initially started experiencing like a lot of issues, like digestive wise. I never really was on the side of like take medication. I was like, push through it. It's fine. Figure something else out. I don't need it. I never really liked that anyways, but I was really struggling with a lot of digestive things. I went to GI doctors and they tried to give me medications and I wouldn't take them. I was like, no, I'm going to do something else. I luckily at the time did have a primary that was a little bit more, a little holistic, that was like, try these things related to food. And I started to see, I was like, oh, if I just like eliminate this a little bit, like this started helping with this. And so when I started to see that, I was like, wow, there's so much more that I can be doing. Like, how much more can I learn? And that's, I think, because on social media, there was not a lot at that time related to holistic health and eat food as medicine and all of that stuff. And so my own research led me to, I ended up doing during COVID, doing a holistic nutritionist certification. And then I also became like I did my yoga teacher certification actually at the same time during COVID
Sure.
as well. So a lot of things were able to come into play that like opened doors that I wouldn't have been able to do I, I mean, there wasn't COVID because I would have been so like in with
Busy with other
like
things.
school. Yeah. And so I was able to do that. And luckily also like I've always like worked and stuff. So that was something I was able to bring on for myself. And doing that just opened my eyes to so much of like just food. And I was so into making recipes and changing that. And just with food, I was able to reverse a lot of the digestive issues that were like pretty debilitating for me. Like I didn't need to do anything else besides that. And so I think part of that was also why I was excited about the OT part. So I was like, oh, it's, before getting into it, sound like it's
Yeah.
like, this is so fitting. And then, maybe I think it was towards the end of OT school, actually. I can't even remember now, like the cross between it. But I came across this other certification that I now have. I'm level 2 certified as an integrative health practitioner. And I don't even know. I think I listened to a podcast and it came up and I was like, what is this? I've been
The
looking
way things
for it.
go now.
Right? And I was like, I've been looking for this because I knew I was like, I could go back to school, but I'm like, I can't go back to school. I wanted to maybe do something in the realm of functional medicine lab testing and all these different things because I knew there was even deeper things I could get to. And so with that being said, I ended up getting into like I did that certification and it just really like opened my eyes up to so much more that was possible. Like for myself and that like I actually wanted. And so that was kind of how I guess I got to that point after the fact, but it was always like progressing since my junior year of college. It just like I never knew what it was ever going to turn into because again, like I think my mindset in high school that like we were so closed in a box of like this is what you do.
Mhm.
I didn't even know these opportunities were out there for me that like didn't require even like going to school for years and years and years longer. But also I'm like, I have a lot of knowledge in different areas. It's like, how can I actually bring this together into something I actually really want to help people the way that I know they can be helped instead of just like doing an unfulfilling career that is not bringing people to their like highest self, I guess, because like I wanted that, and I think I always knew for myself that I just always wanted something more, something bigger, something deeper meaning. And that's just like the personality I've always had. And I feel like for the first time in my life that I am fulfilled and like doing what I'm meant to be doing in my life, to be honest.
No. No,
Um,
and that's so awesome to hear. And I think that something that I've been seeing across this interview series and even for my own personal self, it really was that need to literally learn from so many different areas and take from so many different areas. Like there was, and I still don't think there is one education or one place or one thing to get this all encompassing perspective on what health is and how we do and how we operate because there is a mainstream paradigm that's operating and then there also is like the side holistic paradigm that's operating too. but we need information from both of them and a little bit of this and a little bit of here. So there's no education that's allowing us to get all of those in one place. So I feel like everyone who's doing something adjacent to what we're doing, which, I don't even know what to call myself anymore. My acupuncturist, integrative provider, holistic provider, and a lot of the words I hate using because they have stigma behind them. Like, I don't want to call myself that. So it's a mess right now, but everything's a mess. So who really cares? But that being said, I feel like we needed to just basically hodgepodge and like glue this stuff together in order to start operating. And I'm just happy to know that, and looking back at both of our stories, that was possible, and that we were somehow guided to do all that too, without any idea what that was actually going to look like, which is the crazier part. Because for me too, I was like doing all this education. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I don't know what the end of this is going to look like. I want to utilize this, but I have no idea how, which is crazy to say. Definitely someone looking out for the both of us. And I think the next place I want to take that to get to the tail end of this, what does your occupation, pun intended, look like now? How are you helping and serving and doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So right now I have my own virtual practice and I use, I really use I say I'm an integrative and functional health practitioner. Again, I don't even know what to label myself either because it's so well rounded of the sense of like what I could do. And when I tell people I'm an occupational therapist, they're like, oh, great, you can help me with this and that and the other things. I do get to use all those tools, I feel like, in my practice, but like generally speaking, integrative functional health practitioner. And I specifically specialize in like working with women. I find that's just been like my passion. I love working with women, helping them along their journeys. There's so many more emotional pieces to it a lot of times. And I really do that like root cause approach where it's like, we run some functional lab tests. And I also say that coming from a place of somebody that has worked with functional doctors, naturopathic practitioners, I do think in that realm, sometimes they still throw Band-Aid approaches onto people. And that time and time again. And so I really come from the point of view of like, I really do care so much and I'm not going to stop researching and figuring this out until like we get to the full bottom of what's going on for each individual. So yeah, so I do the functional lab testing. I really offer a comprehensive program for people when they work with me because I also don't love the idea of going to a doctor or even a functional practitioner. It's like, okay, like we have one appointment and then I'll see you next time. And then that whole time in between, they miss the opportunity to fully heal. Because that's what happened for me. And so I made it a way that it's like a comprehensive program where we're on the day to day. Like I'm figuring out lifestyle as what caused this for you in the first place, as well as like, let's bring in that functional medicine piece with labs and supplements and herbal things and all of that. And it leads to this really beautiful place where like so many women just like heal so much quicker than they ever have, even if they've worked with other people in the past. And so that's kind of, where I am right now as to like what I do, who I work with. I really focus on the gut because as we know, the gut is like
His life.
is life. Nothing else matters unless that. So I really focus on that. Of course, that comes in with hormones and all the other things. But that's really where I'm at today. And I mean, I wouldn't be here though without the blends of what I've been through and certifications and degrees and my own health struggles and experiences and all of that. I think has allowed me to create and cultivate this like program that's so efficient that like that took me years of education and learning and things myself to be like at that like moment for that too.
No, and I think that two things you highlighted that I just want to re-highlight and maybe have a mild discussion about is, I think one of them being that you stated that health and healing from these more natural terms, lifestyle changes and all of those things, although they are subtler, although they do take more time, although they're not a quick fix, sometimes they still can be incredibly fast and could be incredibly dramatic. It's this weird balance of telling somebody like, you're not going to take a medication today and then feel better tomorrow, but in a week or so, you really might see a dramatic change. And the other cool thing is these are changes that are going to be lifelong, as long as you keep up with some certain things. But I think those are some things that we have this really big misconception with. And it's a weird way to describe to somebody like, yes, you're going to see like fast, quick, dramatic changes, but also lifestyle stuff is incredibly slow and gradual. So trying to like kind of communicate that balance to them. And I think another thing that you really, really highlighted that I always try to find a way to appropriate communicate is there is so many practitioners who are holistic, integrative, functional, naturopathic, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, chiropractic, which we put into this lens of holistic medicine, that because they're being forced to operate in a capitalistic medical paradigm that we are forced to operate in have fallen into the same traps of just operating like the current regime, not addressing root causes, not going to take the time that they need to take, and doing the exact band-aid approach that they constantly preach that they're not trying to do. And it's incredibly unfortunate, because I see all the time when I have to explain what I am. I'm a chiropractor, an acupuncture, all those things. They're like, oh, well, I've tried that and it didn't work for me. I'm like, all right, well, tell me what they did because it probably was a terrible version of what I could provide for you. And it's so hard to have to defend that and have to tell that story, but it is just the unfortunate truth. And something that I heavily try to communicate with grace to people is there's just as many bad practitioners on either side of this line. So you kind of have to judge everything in its own individual lane.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that way because sometimes I don't even know how to explain that to others of like, because they're like, what would make you different? I worked with all the practitioners and the holistic and this and that. And I have to really like defend myself in a way of like, what makes me different and why I'm different and why working with me is so different because like the approach is still different and the root cause, it's right. Like we're actually like uncovering that. We're like, still, yes, like people have to remember that some people in the space, even if they got like in any area of work that they get into, like there's going to be the ones that are like, have the tools, know what they're doing, go for those things. And then the others that like don't do that as well. And I really try to like share that with others because it is really incredible like that. I do get a lot of feedback that I just had one come through the other day and she was like, I've worked with so many functional practitioners and holistic practitioners, and you're the first one that I've actually felt progress with. And it's like, that goes to show the fact that it's like, it does depend on the person. And like, I'm not saying that I can help every single person. Nobody really can. But I do think with the experience and also drive of a mission towards that versus just, oh, let's have another client or patient come in and go get a paycheck and move through that system and like go like that. I think that's where it like falls short for a lot of people. I think honestly, you like knowing how you practice too, like we're not really driven by that. We're driven by like, how can we actually help you? Like we really want to help you.
No, and it's incredibly sad too, because I'll also say this humbly and not completely seriously. I have practitioner or patients tell me the exact same things that you just said. Like I've worked with so many acupuncturists, I've worked with so many chiros and never had this experience. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm doing kind of a half-assed job myself. This was great for you, I don't even want to know what they were doing because the standard that I hold myself is so high. And I feel like I'm never actually meeting that.
Yep.
It's crazy to me that like you're seeing that for me, and you've obviously had less. And it's really, really unfortunate, honestly, and it's really, really sad. And I don't know what is going to kind of build these bridges and bring us into people understanding, but I think it really is going to take having those long conversations and just experience, word of mouth, and all of those things, and people having that realization that every provider kind of has to be weighed and valued separately, and seeing where that seeing us. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just like taking that chance too, instead of, a lot of people are like, well, I've already done it, so I just shouldn't do it. And it's like every person is so different. Everybody practices so different. It's like if you feel if you want to figure it out, then it's worth taking the chance to see if you succeed or fail.
No, absolutely. And I think that the final question I'm going to leave you with, this is usually an on the spot question for people, so don't overthink this. If you don't have a great answer, that's completely fine. Where do you see your future headed? Do you have, I'm sure you have a plan for the next 20 years of your life, but do you have an idea of like where this is going to take you, what more you'd like to do, how you'd like to incorporate stuff?
Yeah, that's really good. I think where I'm at right now is realizing that I want to help so many people. And in order to do that, I think I need and know that I need to build a team of people that are
Yeah.
aligned with me as well, though. And I'm going to be very specific and particular about that because, like, end goal wise, it's like, how many people can I actually help and give like quality care to and not be like, here, like, I can take, you go to the doctor and they're like having 60 patients a day or something,
Yeah.
not in that sort of sense, but like how many people can I actually help and like make a difference, and that like ripple effect is like my goal and mission overall. And like with that, I know that I'm somebody that is like, I don't like to ask for help. I like to do everything by myself, and I like to like just be good at all the things, and like it attests to my whole life of me growing up. But I think at this point of like, I am in the mindset of expansion and like, how can I keep just like building and rippling into a bigger team that like aligns and knows and is with me on my side of like what we're going after here. And even if, requires the training and all of that to like be in that space. But goal wise in the future is really to like make my practice as really big as I can with helping as many people as I can, I guess, in like the big overall of it all.
Yeah. And it's beautiful to hear that. And I think that this is why this relationship just with is to find a way to reach out to more people. And I think we both realize that one of those ways is through education, doing videos, getting some more information out there. And the unfortunate other side of that is there's almost too much information out there. But if we connect with people that like do trust us and that do understand that our knowledge is helpful and useful, we can obviously still be able to guide them in that way and in that direction. So final question I'm gonna lead you to, do you see a lot more like teaching, presenting, that type of thing being part of your repertoire in the future?
Think so, for sure. I realized that something else, I just like learn obviously so much and, a lot of people do about themselves over the years, but over the past year, I've learned I love to educate and be in front of others and educate them. And even my coaching container that I have, I'll do a monthly call and like pick a topic that I can educate on because it could be as simple as sleep and people don't even realize there's so many different factors that contribute cause wise and all of that. And I really do love that piece of just educating and being in front of people and helping them understand, what is possible and what the research says and I'm such a nerd in that sense that like, I feel like I can't just keep it all in my head. And I feel like I can feel that way too. We can't just keep this all to ourselves. And that's kind of how I feel.
And I think that the part about education is important for the both of us simply because we do have all these ideas like coming out of our brains and out of our heads. And we probably want to spare the people in our lives that we're constantly telling things like our spouses or significant others, our family, because they're more than annoyed of hearing us constantly educating them. For the sake of our relationship, educating the world is probably a better outlet.
Good. Yeah. If I say parasite one more time to somebody, they're probably going to freak out. So I need to tell others about it.
No, that is more than fair. Well, I'm really grateful for this conversation. I'm actually really surprised with a lot of the areas we've been into because there were areas in which I was expecting to or thinking about going into. And I learned something today about what an occupational therapist does, which is crazy. I did not know what an occupational therapist does. So that is very, very cool.
I can't believe you didn't either and never asked.
No, seriously. Seriously. So that being said, I'll make sure to include how to get a hold of you. I'll make sure to tag how to get a hold of you, website, all that stuff, like notes below so people can reach out if something like that does come across. And I think we'll definitely be hearing from you a little bit more, definitely get some of that educational aspect and all that good stuff in. So thank you for the conversation and we'll see you next time. All right.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.